So today we'll be discussing hepatitis. Now, before we get into what is hepatitis, now I'm sure that you must have come across hepatitis sometime before this, either in MedSurg or in microbiology. But I'll give you a general overview of what hepatitis is and how it occurs. So, hepatitis can be caused by something called hepatitis virus, which are of 6-7 types. Okay, there are 5 major types and there are 2 minor types. So, we have hepatitis B virus, so sorry, A virus. Then we have, I'll just put Hep B and all, okay? Hep B, अगर नहीं तो Hep B को बाजू लगाएंगे. Hep C, Hep D, uh, Hep E, Hep B, Hep G, and Hep F. Okay. For now, don't bother yourself about G and F. Okay, they are not as common and they're not clinically as relevant as the first 5 types. Why I'm writing them separately is because the first 4 types that you see here, all of them. So these 4 types have ssRNA, single stranded RNA. Okay, meaning they have a single strand of RNA. Their genetic makeup is made up of a single strand of RNA, whereas hepatitis B is a DNA virus. Okay, this is a dsDNA virus, ds double stranded DNA virus. Okay, so that is one of the main differences between Hep B and the rest of the hepatitis. You will eventually learn what are the more minute details between the other more minute differences between all of them. But for now, those 4 are what you call RNA viruses, and this is a DNA virus. Now, whenever you look at the structure of a hepatitis virus, generally speaking, these people will have, or at least some of them will have, a capsule around them. Okay, and they will have a RNA present inside them. Now, in some of them, okay, except A and E, C, D, and B, they will have something called core proteins inside them. Okay, they will have another layer like this called core proteins. Okay, they already have a capsule, so this is the capsule. Capsule will be present in all the 5 of them, but core protein is something that will be present only in C, D, and B. Okay, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and hepatitis E. Now, why is it significant? Whenever an infection is occurring and whenever you try to find out, because incubation period in hepatitis can be quite long. Okay, it can vary from 15 days to 10 days to 90 days sometimes, or sometimes even 180 days. So there might be patients who will not know whether or not they have hepatitis for almost 6 months before, and during that period of time they might as well have been infecting it to other people. Okay, voluntarily or involuntarily, knowingly or unknowingly, they might have done that. So more likely that unknowingly they had done that, because for 6 months they had not shown any symptoms. So basically they were in an incubation period. The particles that you will see in serum will be this RNA and DNA particles. So whenever you perform a what you call CBC or something like that, in your blood you'll be able to see, when you perform a serological test, you'll be able to see viral DNA or viral RNA. You'll be able to see capsular proteins, and you'll be able to see core proteins. Sometimes you'll also see antibodies that are made for these antigens. So this I'll just write the antigens of that RNA or of hepatitis. We have core proteins. Okay, they can act as antigens. Now, antigen is anything that can trigger an immune reaction. Okay, that capsular proteins, RNA, and DNA, all of these will be antigens. Okay, these will be antigens. Antibodies will be what are produced, immunoglobulins that are produced against these. So sometimes you will see antibodies being produced at the same time as antigens, or sometimes after the antigen has resolved you'll be able to see like serologically antibodies being present, giving you lifelong immunity. Okay, that happens in some cases. I hope you are understanding till here what is happening. We have hepatitis. There are several viruses under hepatitis. Okay, there are several types of hepatitis. A and E are similar in a sense. C, D, B will have, if we say structurally, they will have something called a core protein. Okay, all of them will have this capsule. This is a capsule, and this is a core protein. Okay, and they either have a RNA or a DNA. Only hepatitis B will have a DNA, double-stranded DNA, whereas the rest of them will have a single-stranded RNA. All right. Now, any of these particles can trigger an immune reaction in your body where your body starts fighting against this virus. Those antigens can be core proteins of the virus, they can be capsular protein of the virus, it can be RNA or DNA of the virus, okay, depending on what type of virus it is. Sometimes during this test, you can also find antibodies in the person's body. Okay, immunoglobulins that are produced in response to these antigens. Now, these might be produced at the same time as the infection, or sometime maybe at the end of the infectious phase, or it might also be produced after the infection has gone away in order to make memory cells. Okay, giving you lifelong immunity. So this is the picture for now. These are the types of viruses. Now I'll tell you how they generally infect. Okay, let's suppose we have a hepatocyte. Okay, they mainly affect your hepatocyte. Let's suppose this is your hepatocyte. Here we'll use a single stranded RNA. So let's suppose this is HCV, HAV or HEV, any one of those. Okay, and here we take another one which is dsDNA. Okay, let's suppose we have one which is, so here is the second strand. Okay, double stranded DNA. Now whenever this virus comes and attaches here, okay, you have the phase of attachment where it will come attached to the cell surface, it will undergo endocytosis, it will enter into your cell, and this RNA now, so we are talking about RNA first. Okay, this RNA now incorporates itself into your ribosome. Okay, let's suppose this is your ribosome. Okay, I hope you are understanding till here. I hope all of you are following. If you are having doubts, please let me know. I'll stop in between and explain again. This RNA, what it will do is it will control the ribosome in such a way that, or basically to put it in another way, that ribosome will read the RNA and start making different proteins. Okay, viral proteins. So you will get core proteins, you will start getting enzymes, you will start getting, now inside the virus you also have enzymes, you have several proteins which are required for normal functioning of that virus. So these proteins, enzymes, okay, all of them, capsular material, core proteins, all of them will start being formed. Okay, and what will happen is these proteins will go to your Golgi complex, and let me draw this a little bigger. Okay, now these proteins will enter your Golgi complex and they'll be packed into vesicles. Okay, Golgi complex and endoplasmic reticulum, and they'll be packed into different vacuoles which contain these protein molecules and these enzyme molecules. Okay, these enzymes. Another thing that will happen is your virus will use a particular enzyme called RNA polymerase. Okay, just write it here. RNA polymerase. Now the function of RNA polymerase, if you remember transcription or the process of what you call cell division, in that we had something called DNA polymerase, where whenever a cell is undergoing division, it will use DNA polymerase to multiply itself. The same way here, RNA polymerase will use the enzyme, RNA will use the enzyme RNA polymerase to make several more copies of RNA. Okay? Why is this important? Whenever you have this RNA and these enzymes, both of them will combine with each other and form a new virus particle, basically another virion. One second. Something like a hexagonal one, okay, which will have all the enzymes of a virus, and basically it is a virus. Okay, so it is using a hepatocyte to make more of its own replicas, or basically to reproduce. यहाँ तक समझ में आया what is happening? I'll just repeat once again in case you did not understand. We have a, let's suppose this is HAV. ठीक है, HAV virus. This fellow is coming to your hepatocyte. So this is your hepatocyte. ठीक है, it will enter your hepatocyte using endocytosis. Once it has released itself inside, it will do two things. First thing is it will use the ribosome to start producing viral proteins and viral enzymes. Other than that, it will use a particular enzyme called RNA polymerase to multiply its own RNA structure, wherein more RNA molecules are formed. Okay, more strands of RNA are formed. Now, once these proteins and enzymes have been produced, they move on to your Golgi complex or endoplasmic reticulum, and they get packed into different vesicles, waiting for RNA molecules to be produced. Once these RNA molecules have been produced, these enzymes, proteins, all of them will combine together to make new virions. Okay, so this is a virion. All right. Now, as time goes by, more and more amount of virions will accumulate, and at one point of time, the hepatocyte will literally burst open, wherein virions will be released in a large number. That is one way. Okay, I hope you understood this. What is happening here? Now, coming to this thing, let's suppose it is HBV. Okay, this is a DNA virus, so it is a double-stranded DNA. What this fellow will do is, this fellow will enter your nucleus. Okay, let's suppose this is your nucleus. It will it will kind of uncoat, and it will unwind, and it will attach to your own DNA. So this DNA, viral DNA, it has a capability of attaching to your own DNA, okay, to human DNA. And what it does is, once it attaches to that DNA, it will cause one particular enzyme called reverse transcriptase to form. Once again, so let me draw it in this way. Let's suppose this is your human DNA. Okay, the first thing this fellow is doing is coming and attaching into your own DNA. Let's suppose a small strand has attached like this. Okay, from this, one thing it will do is, here it will make a mRNA molecule. Okay, viral mRNA molecule, and this mRNA molecule will now use this ribosome to make more proteins. Okay, to make new proteins, let's suppose to make proteins of HBV. Another thing it will do is, now that it is DNA, it will be subjected to, or it will use the human, it will use its own reverse transcriptase enzyme. So we have something called, ever heard of retroviruses? आप लोगों को माइक्रोबायोलॉजी में पढ़ा है शायद ना. What is a retrovirus? No one remembers, or weren't you taught? What is a retrovirus? I'm sure तुम लोगों को पढ़ाए होंगे. HIV पढ़ाए, or at least have you heard about HIV? Hmm? Okay, you've heard. So what is reverse transcriptase then? I'm getting one reply from one student. What about the others? Are you even listening? What is reverse transcriptase? Are yeah, yesterday also I asked you a question. What are the cells of your GIT that will produce serotonin? Did anyone find out? Who should I ask? Atul, what is the cell that will secrete serotonin in your GIT?
Yes, sir.
What are the cells that will secrete serotonin in your GIT?
Hmm. Markel.
Mm-hmm.
Markel cells.
Merkel cells, huh? Are you sure about it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because as I remember, it is
Yes,
endoplasmic
sir.
cells. Okay, check and let me know once. Make sure that you check. Okay, as far as I remember, it is the enterochromaffin cells that will produce serotonin. Okay, today's
Yes,
question
sir.
for you will be,
Enterochromafin cell.
what is reverse transcriptase? Find out and tell me what is reverse transcriptase and why is it important? What types of viruses will have reverse transcriptase and what is its significance? Okay. Now, what reverse transcriptase specifically does is, in this virus, it will help. Now, this is a DNA. Okay. It has incorporated, or let me put it in a different color. And the viral RNA has incorporated itself into your own DNA, and one part is making mRNA. Whenever it is getting transcribed, it is getting converted into mRNA, and that mRNA is making more viral proteins and more viral enzymes whenever it is read by ribosome. Classic translation. Okay. Another thing that will happen is this DNA will be subjected to reverse transcriptase, and so not this, one second, not this DNA, this RNA. This RNA will be what do you call, some part of the RNA will be read by ribosome, some part of the RNA, or some of the RNA, let's suppose it is making 100 RNA molecules, some of them will go to your ribosomes and start reading or getting read, wherein it is producing viral proteins and viral enzymes. The rest of them will undergo a reaction, or they will undergo reverse transcription, wherein RNA will form DNA, and this DNA specifically is viral DNA. Okay. So the same thing will happen again. Now viral proteins and viral enzymes that are packed through your Golgi complex will combine with this dsDNA, and it will make new virion. This virion will be HBV, which has a double stranded DNA molecule. Okay. I hope you guys are following. I'll repeat once again just in case someone did not understand. HBV does two things. Okay, once it has a dsDNA structure, it is different from HAV to HEV. Okay, this fellow, once it enters into your body through endocytosis, it will attach, its DNA material will attach to human DNA, and it will do what you call transcription. Whenever it undergoes transcription and makes mRNA, that will be viral mRNA, because it has a viral DNA molecule here. Okay. This mRNA will do two things. The first thing it will do is, some of the mRNA molecules will go and be read by ribosomes, wherein it is making viral proteins and viral enzymes and other viral components. The rest of the mRNA will be subjected to an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. This reverse transcriptase will help mRNA, viral mRNA, to convert into viral dsDNA. This is viral, okay? This double-stranded DNA, when combined with these proteins and enzymes, will be helpful in making new HBV virions. Okay? As time goes by, more and more virions will what you call accumulate. And see, I'm using both of them at the same time as an example. Okay, generally only HBV and HDV will occur together. Other than that, HAV will occur solo. So you'll only have one of these patterns, not both of them together. HBV and HDV generally tend to work together. I'll explain why and how. So what happens is, ultimately in both of these cases, more and more virions are getting accumulated, and at one point of time, what will happen is this cell will burst open. Okay, there'll be a inflammatory reaction. T cells will come into picture, and they will literally burst out. Your MHC will get involved. Viral antigens will get released, and ultimately this cell will burst out, and you will get a few effects. Okay, from this. I hope यहाँ तक समझ में आया what is happening. Okay, fine. Now, coming to specific type of viruses. Let's suppose we start with hepatitis A. Hep A and Hep E are very similar. it will make it easier for you to memorize. Now, hepatitis A specifically, this is usually benign and self-limiting disease in the sense that over the course of time, it will either heal itself or it will not produce any what do you call chronic or very dangerous conditions. It will be acute, but it will not be extremely dangerous, in the sense not life-threatening. So it is a benign and self-limiting disease. All right, this fellow will have an incubation period of 15 to 45 days. Now, incubation period meaning it is a period where the person is not showing what you call any symptoms, but they are able to transmit the disease. They can spread the disease to other people, but they are not showing any type of what you call symptoms. They are asymptomatic. Okay, they are similar to carrier state. They are carriers basically of the disease, and it mostly affects children, generally 5 to 14-year-olds. Okay, hepatitis A, if it is occurring in adults, it will generally happen if that adult has been infected by children. Other than that, generally adults do not get infected by hepatitis A. Mostly children do, and only children can spread to adults. Directly adults mein hona is much more rarer. All right. Uh, Coming to the serological markers that you see, specifically you'll be able to see IgM type of antibodies, right? IgM anti-hepatitis A, anti-hep A antibody. You'll be able to see this appears in serum at the onset of symptoms. So once carrier stage or incubation period is over, and once the patient starts showing symptoms, at that period of time you will be able to see IgM type of antibodies, okay, especially when symptoms of acute infection have appeared. Other than that, you will also have IgG antibodies. Now, these IgG antibodies will come after IgM antibodies, and they will give you lifelong immunity. Okay, so you have the other type is IgG anti-hepatitis A antibody. Okay, appears after IgM and gives lifelong immunity. All right. So that is about hepatitis A. You do not have a lot about each type of hepatitis, but it is significant enough. Okay. Both of these viruses will be transmitted to fecal oral route. Okay. If you are drinking contaminated water or eating contaminated food, that is when you will get what do you call this type of hepatitis. Transmission fecal oral route. There is another very common parasite, no, that can get transmitted through fecal oral route. I'm sure you must have studied it in dysentery and diarrhea. Think, where have you studied about fecal oral route anywhere else? Fecal oral transmission. Okay, that will be the second question for you. Find out and tell me. First question is, what is reverse transcriptase and what are the viruses that have reverse transcriptase called, and what is the significance of that reverse transcriptase? Second question is, what is the other parasite that can cause diarrhea and is transmitted through fecal oral route? Right, tomorrow I'll ask you a question. Now, coming to hepatitis E, again, it is the same thing. This fellow will enter enterically. Its transmission is through fecal oral route. All right. It mostly enters through your GIT, obviously, when it's consumed, and consuming contaminated foods. And both of these generally occur in developing countries where what do you call sanitation is not exactly proper. That is when there is a higher risk of hepatitis A and hepatitis E running rampant in society. Now, this infection generally occurs in young and middle-aged individuals. Okay, it can occur up to 30 or 35, something around that, and it will generally acquired by contamination of water supplies, okay, especially after monsoon flooding. So, if what you call monsoon flooding occurs, and you've seen in India especially, or in several other countries, whenever there is a lot of what you call rain, you will see what you call a lot of water being clogged, and it starts coming out of several places, and that is generally contaminated water, that when it comes in contact with fresh drinking water or water that you use for food, that can lead to problems such as this, especially when that water is not subjected to proper heat, and if it water is not boiled or it is not filtered properly, that is when this can occur. Now, this will also cause an acute infection. Hepatitis A and hepatitis E are incapable of causing chronic infection, meaning both of them will not go on for a long period of time causing chronic symptoms. Both of them will only have acute infections. Okay, this is also an ssRNA, and incubation period is in between 15 to 60 days. Okay, so for during that period of the time, the person will be relatively what do you say, asymptomatic. Coming to antigens, it will produce specific type of hepatitis E antigen itself. You'll be able to see either hepatitis E RNA itself, which is causing what you call, which is floating around in your serum, or you'll be able to see some antibodies, especially IgM type of antibodies, flowing around in this. Okay, now we have, coming to antibodies, we have anti-HEV antibodies. These will be both IgG and IgM. IgG and IgM. IgM coming first, then IgG following, giving you lifelong immunity. You will also see HEV RNA. Okay. HEV RNA can also trigger, or it can also trigger an immune reaction, or it can act as a antigen in itself. All right. So this is about HIV and HEV. I hope you understood. Now let's go to HBV. HBV is kind of special because this causes a very severe type of illness. Okay, HBV, HCV, and HDV, all three of them are capable of causing chronic as well as acute infections. HDV technically will majorly cause only chronic, but HBV and HCV, both of them can cause acute as well as chronic infections. So coming to HBV or hepatitis B virus. Now, hepatitis B virus, it has a pathogenic mechanism where hepatocellular damage is very, very severe. Okay, in this, hepatic damage is very severe. That is why it will enter into your chronic stage very easily. And once a person has chronic infection, they can have bouts of acute attack as well. In the sense that, let's suppose someone has been suffering from hepatitis for a while. In the sense, let's suppose chronic money a few years. Let's suppose 6-7 years, for 6-7 years a person has had hepatitis B virus, what do you call, virus inside them, and it is creating the disease chronically. Okay, in between sometime, whenever their immunity is becoming weaker, like weaker than normal, even though they already have HBV, their immunity will already be weak. But let's suppose it has become even more weaker because of a certain condition, because let's suppose they went under chemotherapy, or because of whatever reason their immune system weakened even more, it can mount acute reactions in between chronic reactions. So you will have chronic infection, and you will have bouts of acute infection in between them, which can be even more dangerous. All right, because you will have double damage at that time. All right, this is one of the strongest viruses amongst all the hepatitis viruses, and it will generally produce very drastic results in hepatitis. Okay, now coming to mode of transmission, both hepatitis B, hepatitis C, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and hepatitis D, all three of them can be transmitted through parenteral routes, especially things like IV drugs, or when drugs are being exchanged, like transfusions or blood products, or if a patient is undergoing hemodialysis, or if there is intimate contact, something like from a mother to child or during intercourse. In all of these conditions, what do you call, these viruses can be transmitted. So we have um, blood transfusions, we have perinatal, wherein it is going from mother to child. Okay, you'll have to use certain medications to avoid what do you call, the transmission of this disease in case of pregnancy. If you already know that the mother has hepatitis and she has conceived, you can use a certain drugs to make sure that the baby does not get hepatitis virus. All right. And we have hemodialysis and intercourse. Okay. Through all of these, transmission of HBV, HDV, as well as HCV can occur. All right. And coming to incubation period of hepatitis B virus, generally incubation period has been between 30 to 180 days. This means that the person will not know whether or not they have HBV virus for all, they can not know for almost 6 months as well. You will have an asymptomatic patient all the way from 1 month to 6 months. So for 6 months, whenever they are coming in contact with people, whenever they are transfusing blood, whenever, let's suppose, they are having intercourse, or whenever what do you call, they are performing hemodialysis, if they do, there is a very good chance that they can transmit the disease or they can infect another person. Okay. This fellow is a dsDNA. Everyone else is a ssRNA. Okay, double stranded DNA. Now, specifically, these viruses or this virus will have several antigens and several serological markers. You will see several things in the what do you call, in the serum of a patient once you start once symptoms start being produced. Those serological markers will include HBs antigen. Okay, this is called surface antigen. Okay, hepatitis B. This is something that is derived from the capsular protein. That is why it is called a surface antigen. This will generally appear after 6 weeks. Okay, once infection has occurred and after 6 weeks of infection, that is when the person will start active infection. Okay, once they have started showing symptoms and also incubation period is over. After that, after 6 weeks of proper infection, active infection, that is when you will start seeing surface antigen, and it can persist somewhere around 6 months. Okay, 3 to 6 months it will persist, and after that it will disappear. Then we have hepatitis, anti-hepatitis E, anti-hep B antibody. Okay, you can have here both IgM and IgG type. Okay, both of these are possible and they generally appear late. Okay, it will take some time. These are detected during pre-ecteric period. Okay, I'll explain to you what pre-ecteric period is. The pathogenesis of hepatitis as such and the symptomology that you see can be divided into 4 different parts. Okay, you will see progression in different stages. So initially the patient will be in carrier state, then there will be asymptomatic infection wherein they are asymptomatic but they can transmit infection very very severely, and they will have acute hepatitis, chronic hepatitis, and fulminant hepatitis. Those are the five stages. You in acute hepatitis, you will have a few stages, one of which is pre-ecteric phase. This fellow will specifically be seen in your pre-ecteric phase. Okay, before you start seeing symptoms of jaundice and all. Icterus basically refers to jaundice. At one point of time, when hepatitis becomes so strong or when hepatitis becomes so rampant that it is causing jaundice, that phase will be called icteric phase. These two antibodies will appear right before that. Okay, especially IgM type of antibody, this will persist for 4 to 6 months, followed by IgG antibody that will remain in your body. Okay, then we have hepatitis B virus DNA. Okay, that itself can act as an antigen altogether. Then we have uh, hepatitis B C antigen. So this C antigen is named so because you are getting it from core protein. Okay, so you call it core protein derived from a particular from the core protein of that virus. You'll be able to get an antigenic material. That antigen itself will trigger an immune reaction. So all of these are some of them. Okay, you will have 4 5 more, but to keep it simple, these four will generally appear in the blood, or they will act as serological markers in a person who is having hepatitis at varying points of time. Okay, it might be 6 weeks, it might be 1 month, it might be 3 months, 4 months. At different points of time you will see all of these, and you'll be able to gauge whether or not the person has HBV. Okay, they are diagnostic markers so that you can start treating a patient. All right, we'll discuss or continue tomorrow.